Well, cross that line past the no trespass sign.
Welcome back to Vibe
Dust kicking
Podcast.
up,
Today we're
moon
discussing
hanging
circles of
fine.
truth, crack to bang, a topic
Heard a
researched for
horn
us by
from
David
the
Morgan.
canyon low.
I'm joined by Charles and Angela.
Hello everyone, Charles here, a ballistics expert. My focus is on the science, the physics, and the verifiable data behind these kinds of events. Glad to be here to break down the technical aspects.
And I'm Angela. You know me, always digging deeper, asking the questions no one else dares to. Because let's be honest, folks, what they tell us is happening is rarely the full picture. Everything is what they want us to believe.
Excellent. Let's dive right into our material, starting with what David calls the first image, detected shockwave and muzzle blast peaks. Charles, can you give us the layman's explanation of what we're looking at here about sound waves and circles linked to the Charlie Kirk shooting?
Absolutely. Imagine you're watching a speedometer, but instead of speed, it's measuring sound. This first image is a waveform graph, showing us two very distinct spikes. The first spike, a sharp, quick burst, is what we call the shockwave, or the crack. This is created when a bullet travels faster than the speed of sound. The second, larger spike, occurring later, is the muzzle blast, or the bang, which is the sound of the gun firing. It's essentially a visual representation of the crack-to-bang sequence.
A visual representation, Charles, or a convenient representation? I mean, these are just lines on a graph, right? How do we know those peaks are what they claim? Couldn't that data be, well, curated? To fit a narrative about the Kirk shooting, perhaps? We're talking about a UVU camera here. Who's operating it? Who's processing this data?
Well, Angela, the consistency of these peaks with established ballistics physics is well documented.
Fascinating. So, we have the crack at about 33 milliseconds and the bang at around 302 milliseconds. That's a significant delay. Now, let's move to the second image, circles from each microphone. This one looks like a map. Charles, what are these circles telling us?
This image gives us the spatial context. It's like a bird's eye view, showing the positions of various detection equipment, microphones and that same UVU camera, relative to the source of the sound, which in this case is labeled the FBI shooter. Each circle represents the maximum range at which a specific microphone or recording mobile phone could detect that event. The intersection of these circles is the presumed location of the Kirk shooter, and the radius of each circle is the measured distance from the shooter to that sensor. For instance, the UVU camera is shown at 104.2 meters from the source, the shooter's gun.
The Kirk shooter. Suddenly, we're not just discussing abstract physics, are we? This immediately grounds it in a specific event, a specific narrative. And these circles, with their exact distances 104.2 meters, 116.0 meters, 128.9 meters. It all seems a little too precise, doesn't it? As if someone wants us to believe these measurements are absolute truth. Who is this FBI shooter, and why are these specific numbers being presented as definitive?
The label, FBI shooter, here is likely just a placeholder used by the FBI or a reference to the specific scenario being analyzed for validation purposes. It is where the FBI think the shooter was. The key takeaway from this diagram is the relative positions and measured distances of the sensors. The precision in the measurements is what allows for accurate ballistics reconstruction. These circles aren't just arbitrary. They represent the sphere of influence for each detection point.
And this is where the Circles of Truth title comes in, right? It's about how these different data points align. Charles, how do these two images, the waveform showing time and the circles showing distance, connect mathematically?
This is where it gets really interesting, Alice, and it's the core of the validation. The timing of the bang, the muzzle blast, from the waveform should correspond directly to the distance shown in the spatial diagram, based on the speed of sound. We know the UVU camera detected the muzzle blast at 302.71 milliseconds. The spatial diagram tells us the UVU camera was 104.2 meters from the shooter. If we take the standard speed of sound, around 343 meters per second, and calculate the time it should take for that sound to travel 104.2 meters, we get approximately 303.8 milliseconds.
Wait, approximately. So, not exact. And you call that excellent agreement in your notes? A difference is a difference, Charles. It's a small discrepancy that could indicate a much larger fabrication, if you ask me. They want us to focus on the near-perfect match, but what's in that 1.08 millisecond gap? What are they not telling us?
Angela, that 1.08 millisecond difference, or 0.4% error, is actually considered an incredibly precise match in real-world ballistics analysis. Temperature is a factor, and it was 30 degrees Celsius that day. It accounts for the minor environmental variables or system processing delays. It's evidence of accuracy, not fabrication. It confirms that the temporal data from the waveform and the spatial data from the circle diagram are in near perfect agreement, physically and mathematically.
So, essentially, the time it took for the bang to reach the camera, as measured, perfectly aligns with the distance the camera was from the shooter. What about the crack, the shockwave? How does that factor in?
That's where the geometry becomes even more revealing. The difference between the crack and the bang detection times, about 269.59 milliseconds, tells us the distance the bullet had traveled past the sensor when the muzzle blast sound reached it. This delay allows us to calculate something called the miss distance, how far the bullet actually passed from the UVU sensor. Using a bit of geometry, specifically the Pythagorean theorem, we can determine the bullet passed approximately 48 meters away from the UVU sensor. This further validates the entire scenario, creating a consistent picture of the event.
Oh, more calculations. So, we're supposed to trust these calculations, Charles? This miss distance, based on a theorem named after a historical figure? This is all just a story being woven, using numbers and diagrams to create an illusion of undeniable truth. They're giving us details like realistic bullet velocity and system processing delay to make it all sound legitimate, but it's just noise to distract from the real questions. What is the true purpose?
The purpose, Angela, is to validate the effectiveness of these detection systems. This level of detail and consistency across different types of measurements, temporal and spatial, is what gives us confidence in the technology used for gunshot detection and localization. It's about building a robust understanding of the physics at play. The numbers confirm the reality, not obscure it.
And the conclusion then, Charles, is that the system's timing and geometry are fully consistent with ballistics physics.
Precisely. The UVU waveform's muzzle blast peak and the UVU circle's radius in the spatial diagram are mathematically and physically aligned with only a 0.4% error. The crack-to-bang delay and the calculated miss distance further confirm the bullet's trajectory and the sensor's spatial relationship. This isn't just a coincidence. It's a strong validation of the data accuracy.
Or it's a perfectly crafted narrative designed to appear accurate, designed to shut down any critical thinking of the Kirk shooting. Robust validation, excellent agreement, these are just buzzwords to make us swallow whatever information they're feeding us about the Charlie Kirk event. Don't believe everything you're shown, folks. There are always more circles of truth than the ones they want you to see.
Well, Charles, Angela, thank you for those very different, yet equally passionate
cross that
perspectives on our
line
topic
past the
today.
no trespass
It certainly
sign.
gives our listeners a lot to think about. That's all for today. A big thank you to our guest researcher, David Morgan, for providing our topic. I was your host, Alice.
Spotlight shine like it wanted to know. Down in Area 51 where the secrets sleep, they say the truth ain't ours to keep. Silver ships and government lies, blink once and you're gone from sight. Yeah, out in the desert where the world comes undone, I saw a light in Area 51.